Welcome to day 234 of the 300 Movie Challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of November 2013, which was Frozen. I have a story and a scientific theorem.
Oh boy.
So, as everyone is aware, this movie was kinda popular.
It's a teensy.
Little popular. And I, I was, at this point, I was in college. And so you think, okay, sure, I mean, it's popular, but for, kids, right? I mean, it's whatever, kids are kids, and they're over there, and you're in college, you're over here, so, whatever, right? It's not gonna bother you. Two things about that. I worked at a summer camp. Summer 2014. Summer 2014. So, 6 months after this movie came out, more than that. It was fucking Frozen all day, every day. And we had, a whole music thingy that people could to play songs over the camp radio system. And it literally, I heard Let It Go probably, not even exaggerating, at bare minimum 50 times.
Oh god.
Not even exaggerating. You think I just made up a number, and no, I honestly thinking that's probably somewhat accurate. And the other thing is, it wasn't just kids. It seemed everyone lost their fucking mind to this movie. College people were obsessed with this movie. And the scientific theorem that came from this is what I have dubbed to be known as the Frozen effect. And the Frozen effect is where there's some form of media or whatever that you see it and you're like, okay, this seems alright. Okay. And you're kind of maybe a little bit, maybe not interested is maybe not necessarily the right word, but you don't immediately go, ugh, you at least look at it with okay, whatever. But then because everyone talks about it, and not just when, the conversation is, you should. No, it just, people just throw it into the conversation.
It's
Randomly.
oh, what did you eat today? Oh,
Frozen.
Or, people will just literally... No, it's more so usually to be oh, we're just talking, and then somehow someone, brings in, tries to make a pun out of what we're talking about to be about, Let It Go, or what, some shit like that, right? And it's everywhere, and you can't escape it, okay? And because of that, you grow to loathe it, because it won't leave you alone. And for me, I'm sure everyone has these kinds of things in their lives. For me, Frozen, of course, was the first one. Second one was Undertale, which people would not shut the hell up about, and literally brought it into any sort of conversation involving any video game. And that was terrible. And the third one for me would be Overwatch, which is not quite as bad as Undertale, to be honest, but I still see it, everywhere in terms of, the character designs and all that kind of stuff. And I guess there's a kind of similar thing, but it's its own kind of thing, and it's different, and I'll talk about that later, that's happened more recently. And I'm sure people think, maybe, Star Wars is like that, or maybe Marvel movies or something is kind of in a similar vein, but so I'm sure this affects different people, but and I'm not saying you can't like this movie, okay? I'm not saying that. But just don't shove it in my fucking face, please. It's just, oh my god. And the thing is, I looked. This movie is currently the 13th highest grossing film ever. When it came out, it was 5th. Only being beaten by Harry Potter Deathly Hallows 2, The Avengers, Titanic, and Avatar. it is still the highest grossing, like, pure Disney, like, kind of animated movie ever. Incredibles 2 is very close, but it is currently not, and I actually believe the theatrical run for Incredibles 2 officially just ended like a week or so ago. So it will not beat it. And the problem is I cannot look at this film objectively. I try to look at every film as like, okay, I'm coming into it with certain biases. Like, for example, when we talked about Monsters University, and I said, like, I came in with low expectations, and honestly, that it was a bit better than I would thought. So I didn't want to, therefore, though, but like rate it higher than it should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to not do that with this, and I can't, because I'm thinking like, okay, I have problems with this movie, but I'm really thinking like, are these first two things. One are these actual problems, or am I just coming up with excuses? Or these are actual problems, but the only reason I'm noticing the problems is because of the baggage. I don't know, because I know this film is not made for me, right?
Right.
And I'm really not trying to be the whole, like, oh, I'm, manly man person. Like, I can't, like, baby girly Disney movies, princess movies. And it's like, I'm not, I'm trying to not be in that mindset. Again, like, I'm trying to think of, we saw Mulan a while ago. I thought Mulan was fine. Even as, like, a practice before we started officially doing this, we saw Moana together. I thought that was fine. Even, like, Enchanted. Like, I said when we talked about Enchanted, I'm like, this is, so not for me. But I didn't dislike it. I acknowledged what it was, and I said, it does its job, pretty well. And, like, I was never like, oh my god, I'm so, but I'm like, what? It's not just the baggage, but I don't even know what actual criticisms I have that I would have without the baggage. And I don't know how to, therefore, really talk about this.
Do you want us to talk about it then?
I guess, like, bringing something, and then I'll try to, like, add in what I think about it. I don't know.
Okay, so we actually saw this in theaters a few times.
When it came out, I saw it, I think, twice?
You were the part of the problem.
Sorry.
I mean, like, the first time we went with, like, a kind of awkward group of friends, to kind of phrase it in that way. And I think the second time we went with someone who hadn't seen it before, and we were like, okay, I mean, it was fine. This is before it blew up. This was, like, within 2 weeks of when it came out.
Yeah, we saw it, like, when it, like, first came out and everything. And I admit that I was one of those people that really liked it and everything. And I was like, oh, this is nice and stuff. Because I guess when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I really like the animation and stuff. And how they used, like, the colors, like, and they differentiated the colors with the ice crystals and everything.
Yeah, okay, I can say the animation did look nice. Especially the lighting with, like, the ice. That was good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that.
Especially since most people, like, when we watched Ice Age, even though that wasn't the point of Ice Age, ice was ice. They didn't, like, light it up in any different way, but, like, the way they lit up in this movie was really nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll give it that.
But, and I admit I really liked it and everything, but then as time went on, it kind of also started wearing on me, too.
Yeah, we kind of sit in the camp where at first, when we first saw it, it was like, okay, yeah, it's a pretty good Disney movie, it has.
No, I was even worse than that. It was like in my top 5 at one point, and then it just kind of went down rungs as time went on.
Okay, I guess I was the one who was like, okay, yeah, this is a pretty good Disney movie, because I have my biases that you guys know with Mulan and stuff. That I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, okay, there were some pretty interesting, like, symbolism things that I thought were interesting, because this is a little bit before. No, this is 2 years before I like switched majors, so I wasn't an English major yet, and I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of neat. But yeah, we were kind of in the camp of it didn't last forever, I guess.
No. Much like ice.
Yeah, and I guess this is kind of where we'll kind of talk about where things broke down and like what resulted from that, perhaps.
I guess. Okay, so we talked about the animation and stuff.
The animation is still fine.
Yeah.
The
It's not
animation is
ugly.
still fine. There's still, I guess, the one like tiny complaint that I would. It's not really even like a complaint, really. It's just something that I wish they did.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm not going to like hold the whole movie over because of it. But I would have liked to have seen like different facial structures on like Anna and Elsa. Because
Oh, yeah.
their noses are exactly the same. And that for some reason that kind of like, I mean, I'm not one to really care that much about noses either, but when you look at them in side profile, you don't really see much of a difference between them.
I guess here's the thing. It's 3D animation, so you can do a lot more with it. With 2D animation, it's a little bit more forgivable. I mean, like, we do a lot of artwork, so it's all 2D. So there's a stylization that comes with being 2D where you can be more expressive with like how you do the lines and stuff. But this was meant to be like either like hyper realistic to some degree with like the backgrounds and stuff, but then when it came to the people, they were all the women were like perfect. The men had some variation, like between Kristoff and Hans and like the old dude and stuff. Like all the males seemed to have some variation, but all the females were very idyllic.
Actually, speaking of males, people having like differences.
Mm.
Again, I'd never seen this before, but I happen to know things about this movie through osmosis, right? But the thing is, I thought Kristoff and Hans were the same person. Like going into this movie, I thought their characters were just the same person.
Oh.
So
That's interesting.
honestly, that got me really confused at first because I was like, I realized they were different people, but then I was like, oh, wait, that guy doesn't do this. That's this guy who does this. And I was like,
Oh.
because like I was thinking, like again, I knew that, Chris, like again, I thought the male guy, accompanied Anna like to go get Elsa, and also I knew about the whole twist where he's bad or whatever. So I'm like, wait. So I was expecting him. So I was like in my head, I'm like, how does this work plot wise? And I was like, oh, it's because they're not the same person. So
I guess that was your own personal twist.
I guess so. That's something. But anyway,
So I would have liked to have seen a bit of variation between the two of them. I mean, it's like a really minor thing, so again, I'm not going to hold the whole movie over it. It's just... And in Moana, they kind of do, like, show that a bit more in terms of the variation and stuff.
mm.
I
But,
mean, from an artistic standpoint, it was a mistake to do that since they both look like Rapunzel, and I know there's like the theories and stuff, but let's hold off on the theory that they're related to Rapunzel. If they weren't supposed to be related to Rapunzel, how do you explain that?
Same people worked on it. I have no idea, but maybe, I don't know.
But, going to the more actual movie stuff and everything. So the plot. I think, Valen, you brought this up, which I think is a valid point. Baggage or no baggage, which is that the beginning of the movie actually goes pretty fast, and you don't really get to know the characters that well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because here's like, well, the whole thing about them being like, oh, the whole thing where they're playing and then she accidentally freezes her head or whatever, like that, and then how that basically transitions into she stays in her room and does nothing, and then how that transitions into like there's the party thing, and that transitions into she like, fucks off. It's like that all happens in the span of like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, this is way too fast because we're supposed to, like, all of a sudden feel for exactly what the characters are going through, especially in terms of... Because the whole crux of the movie is supposed to be Anna and Elsa's, like, relationship with each other.
Yeah.
But you, like, don't see them with each other, like, at all, until they finally meet again in the Ice Palace 2/3 into the movie.
Yeah.
And so, like, if they actually wanted to play this better in terms of, like, you know, this kind of tragedy that, like, oh, they're, because of Elsa's powers, they have to be apart or whatever, then, like, actually make them really show that they have actual, like, how they behaved with each other before that. Because then it's like, oh, you know, because they're just kind of saying in the beginning, like, oh, we had so much fun, and oh, I, you know, really liked you, and oh, I'm sad that you don't talk to me, but you don't show that. You just say it, or sing it, right? And so, that was
Show,
way too
don't
quick.
sing.
Yeah. And the freaking songs in this movie, let me just say, of course I knew about Let It Go. I knew about the fucking Build a Snowman song. I knew about at least one other one or something. But there were like 12 songs in this movie. There were so many songs, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like way worse than I thought it was. Like, I just thought there were like 4 or something that everyone like quoted. But no, there's like a song every like 5 minutes for the first like third of the movie.
Yeah, the thing in the beginning is that they made the mistake of like having 3 songs basically back to back, because you have Snowman, and then you have First Time in Forever, and then you have Love is an Open Door in the span of 10 minutes. Where
At most 10 minutes, if not shorter. I'm just like, oh my god, I am going to lose my shit.
between the intro and when Elsa fucks off, that is about 10 minutes. So yeah, there are 3 songs crammed into 10 minutes, and I don't actually remember how many times they just spoke in the beginning.
Yeah. I mentioned
I
this
guess...
for... There was another movie, I know a Disney movie, I mentioned this, where my problem was the whole, like... Again, they use, like, a song as, like, a replacement for actual, like, meaningful dialogue and conversations. And that's especially problematic here, because, again, the whole thing about, Anna and Elsa's connection, it's basically just, how do you want to build a snowman as a song? Like, that's it. That is their connection. And it's like, well, that's not equivalent. It doesn't hold up that way.
Especially since throughout the song you don't even see them really interact with each other either. Because I guess I'm going to give 2 examples taking from 2 movies that we saw already.
Okay.
Which is, I'll do Tarzan first. So, the thing with Tarzan is that it does have songs and stuff, but for one thing, Tarzan isn't singing the songs.
Thank God.
I guess what helps, though, is that even though the songs are playing in the background, it's kind of just showcasing how he grew up, and it kind of gives you the mindset of, like, this is how he is and stuff. So they take their time in the beginning to, like, showcase who Tarzan is and how he grew up and what his mindset is and everything.
Yeah, well, it's on top of, like, the visual storytelling of showing that off, right? It's not a replacement, it's a supplement. And I granted, I think I said during that review that I think that was, like, one of my problems with the movie, so I'm not saying I like that, but I think it's at least done better, because, again, it's not a replacement of what you're supposed to be doing. So,
yeah. It kind of just sets the mood or the tone, and then you see what's going on, then you're like, oh, okay, so this is how he bonds with the apes, because they're his family.
And you get to know Tarzan as a person, even though it's just his actions and stuff. And even when the dialogue is there, it kind of supplements whatever they're showing you and everything.
Yeah. And
even in the beginning of the movie, the jaguar that killed his parents and everything, he kills it and everything. So it kind of like showcases, okay, now what is going to happen and stuff, and it leads into the rest of the story. Another example is Mulan, which we also watched, where you basically get thrown into, like, her life and everything. We don't really know much about how Mulan's life was prior to the movie, but you kind of understand who she is as a person and everything, and you kind of understand her motivations when things happen and the plot actually like kicks into high gear and stuff. Like when she goes off to war, it's not like why is she going off to war and like protecting her dad and stuff. It's like you kind of understand because they showcase the fact that she has a bond with her father and everything. And
Yeah.
that's also something that's presented in Lion King too, where you understand like what was going through Simba's head and everything before he ran away with Mufasa. They didn't just showcase the fact that Mufasa died in the first 10 minutes. Because then you wouldn't really understand much of the rest of the movie and stuff.
We spent a lot of time with Mufasa, all things considered, because he didn't die until like 30, 40 minutes in or something.
Probably
Yeah, and
it's
that's
about
how
a
you
third.
feel
Yeah.
that impact too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the whole her parents are dead too, and it's like literally so quick that they're just like and they died, and it's like okay, cool. And then again, I said like personally again I don't like those kinds of standard Disney songs, and I honestly again I don't really like overall. If I had to say is it a positive or negative that there's songs in Lion King and Mulan, I would say it's a negative, but they're nowhere near as often. And they're not, especially not as in rapid succession, right? So
Yeah.
you at least have a time to breathe between the damn songs. So, yeah, and so that I think at least in terms of the setup, especially that was a problem with the songs, and also just Extension where you really don't. I don't emotionally connect with what's going on because they don't give you time to do that.
No.
So
No.
And then, okay. Anna.
Okay, let's talk about all the problems with Anna, because there are two main things I want to talk about with her.
Okay, you go first.
I guess go first, yeah.
Okay. This is kind of a let's discuss kind of thing, but I guess one of them will feed into the other problem, but let's talk about the love plot with Hans first. So when I first watched this movie, I was also kind of like, what are they doing with this?
Yeah.
Because it happened so much quicker than any other Disney romance, like, because, there's always the joke that, oh yeah, like, Aladdin and Jasmine, they fell in love in 3 days, and then I'm just like, these two took 3 minutes to quote-unquote fall in love, and after a while, like, after thinking about it for a little bit, after all of the years have passed, I was kind of like, did they just put Hans in and this love plot, one, for the twist, and two, to say that they parodied themselves?
Well, yeah, see, that's the thing, because I saw the falling in love, and I'm like, okay, they're parodying themselves, and again, they bring it up later with Kristoff that, like, okay, they do know that it's ridiculous or whatever. So I was like, okay, wait, so they're just, like, basically they bring up this trope just to parody it, but then I'm like, but just by, hey, here's this thing we're doing, it's silly, but you're still doing it, right? But then I'm like, well, wait, but I knew, again, Hans is bad for some reason. I don't know why or exactly what, so I was like, okay, is there something with that? And then it's like, yes, there was, like, that was the point, and at first I was like, oh, okay, but then I was like, but then, like what you just said, well, then, yeah, literally what was the point except for the twist? It turns it into, like, a plot device, but I'm like, is that a good thing? Like,
I'm just like, did we get Shyamalan,
I don't know, it's... And then, okay, I feel like her dialogue, I find that some of her lines that she says and some of her, like, responses to things, I feel like I'm like, if someone else was saying this, I would think it's funny. But you're saying it, and it's not funny. And I'm like, is this just bias, or is there actually something that is there? And
Okay. I think it's... Okay, I think I've talked about this with, like, Frodo in the past, where I said that I don't like painfully naive characters.
Yeah.
She is painfully naive, and she would not last a single day in the real world.
It's
almost like she and
kind
Elsa
of-
switched places. And she was the one who was shut into her room all day long, and Elsa was the one who was out doing shit. Cause like I personally, like, Elsa's okay. She's not like my favorite character ever. She's not like the worst
Yeah,
character ever.
she's
I'm
okay.
fine. She's fine. Anna is so stupid that I don't think she could find her way out of a paper box. Okay? I can't deal with her.
the thing is, the whole like naive thing that can work for me, but the problem is again they play it as she's naive, so she's quirky, and that's the part where I'm just like, oh god, her antics of like, oh, I'm just so silly and ha ha ha, I don't really know what's going on, but I think everything's great and wonderful. Ha! It's like, stop, just sit your ass down and stop.
I guess here's the thing. Like, technically in Enchanted, they already played with that, because when, like, Giselle first appeared in the real world and everything, she was very naive, but the world kind of played to show the fact that things are not always going to be picture perfect and stuff, and you saw her character arc grow from that.
Well,
and
also,
stuff.
even with her naivete, they kind of also went the other way as well, where because of her, again, like, remember the whole, like, crazy dance thing in, like, Central Park, right? So
Yeah.
it almost played into it where it's like, the naivete actually is true in a sense. And again, it's like, again, the movie knew that, like, she's too far, and we know that,
Yeah.
and we're doing it. Where here, it's like, oh, this person's totally relatable and makes sense, and it's like, so, yeah. I'm really trying, again, I'm trying very hard to, and I think I said this, I did already say this before, but the whole, like, I'm trying not to be like, oh, it's just because, she's a girly princess or whatever, it's why I don't like her, and I'm like, I don't think that's it. Like, a lot of my, it sounds like I'm being, the I'm not racist, I have a black friend kind of person, but like, but like, several of my favorite characters in anything ever are female, so, and some of them do have kind of at least the basic similar, like, the idea of, like, here's someone who has a kind of naive view of the world, right? And, like, I think that can work. And again, I would argue that my favorite character of all time kind of has that view, but it has realism to it. And,
Yeah.
She does at
the
least,
thing.
she does learn from it. And also, it's both ways, where she learns that some things she thinks it should be this way, but she realizes it can't be this way. But also at the same time, she's like, well, wait a minute. Even if it's not this way, we should still, like, try to make it this way. Right?
Yeah.
It's the whole thing where it's like, oh, well, life isn't fair or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but we can, like, at least try to make it more fair. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like that kind of attitude, where this is not here. So...
Yeah, like, just to clarify, I don't hate the idea of a naive character. I hate the idea of a naive character who can't function
Yeah.
in their story.
Yeah.
Because the way that you describe, like, this naive character that you're talking about, it's like, okay, yeah, that's realistic, because maybe she's growing up and she's, like, facing the world for the first time, and she's like, okay, this is kind of fucked up, but maybe we can change it, and if we can't, and, like, there's a justified reason that we can't, then that's just how it is. But if we can't, but there is something we can do about it, then let's rebel.
Yeah.
Because that's how normal people are.
I mean, not everyone's going to be, like, jaded and mature about everything.
Yeah.
There's going to be some naive aspects.
That is 100% fine. I'm talking about the people who go out and just like, oh, look at the pretty birds. Oh, why did it shit on me? I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and, like...
Let's make a song about it.
Okay. When she finally does get to Elsa in the ice castle or whatever, and is trying to, like, talk to her, and during that scene I remember, like, Elsa's just like, no, I can't, and the power, and I'm like, why don't you just tell her? Like, why didn't, because remember the whole thing in the beginning of the movie, I feel like this is kind of a different issue, so, but sorry.
Oh yeah, no, this is what I was going to talk about,
Okay.
with the whole, like, getting frozen thing.
Yeah, okay,
So
so why didn't, okay, again, in the very beginning, it's like, oh, Elsa accidentally, did a thing, so they had to, like, erase Anna's memory of that. Okay, whatever, right? Honestly,
Why?
well, yeah, first of all, why? That did seem kind of contrived, but okay, fine, I'll even accept that. But then how come when they actually met in the mountains, Elsa didn't just be like, yo, like, I almost killed you, like, when you were young, so, like, that's why. Like, why didn't you just say that? It's like, again, you could argue, well, maybe since Anna's such a dumb bitch that, like, she wouldn't believe her or still think, oh, but there's still good in you. Like, I made the joke that why does this feel like Anakin from Attack of the Clones? But, but it's just like, wait, huh? And, like, I guess would that really change? I don't know.
I don't think it would really change much in terms of Anna's reaction, but...
No, but still, I feel like that would have been a better way to handle it than just like, no, I can't talk to you, and like run away. And it's like, because that's why, again, like I said, Elsa's like, okay, because at first I kind of liked her, where it's the sense of like someone who, wants to do the right thing but can't control their powers and stuff. It kind of, that can be an interesting, and I kind of like that at first, but then it's like, she just became so shut in and so like non-communicative that I'm like, you are actively making things way worse. And I know someone could probably link this as like, oh, but that's how like people with like, I don't know, mental depression or something, like, maybe feel the same way. I'm sure that's some kind of link that some people have made, and that, like, they'll be like, you're just being insensitive about it. You don't understand how people feel when they're like that. And I guess, but it just came off to me as, like, it's just frustrating in a way that felt unnecessary. So...
I mean, I feel like the root of the problem is the fact that the trolls, for some reason, erased her memories. I don't really understand how that could help her. And, like, they could help her with that, but they couldn't, like, fix her when her hair was turning white.
Yeah. And actually, no, wait, that would have been way more interesting. If it was, like, okay, she actually, like, growing up, wants to be with her sister, wants to play with her sister, but she knows that it can be dangerous. And actually have them grow up through that. Yeah. That would actually be interesting. But they just have, erase her memory, and then, like, insert X amount of years later. And it's like, alright. Sure.
Not really that, but in the grand scheme of things, their sisterly relationship wasn't that long.
No, it wasn't.
Like, to be honest, if you actually applied logic to this movie, Anna would have died.
Yeah.
She would be a frozen statue, and Arendelle would be the North Pole.
Okay, so, and then the whole thing about, like, it's actually, like, the sisterly love that was, like, the true love or whatever. The thing is, I totally called that, like, way early, but whatever.
Oh my... I hate the fact that people point to this and they're like, this is the sisterly movie. No. Lilo and Stitch is the sisterly movie.
Yeah.
Nani broke her ass trying to raise Lilo when their parents got, like, fucked up by the car accident, okay? You don't think her sacrificing her entire life to raise her sister is more of a sisterly bond than this? Don't talk to me.
I don't even think I've actually seen all of Lilo and Stitch, and even from what I know, I would agree with you. It's so...
The thing is that... Okay. If you apply the logic of, like, Disney movies, they fall in love instantly and stuff, theoretically, for the sisterly thing, you could kind of attribute it to a similar thing where they kind of... I mean, you could argue that Anna loved Elsa even though she was shut in and everything and stuff, but I'm kind of just like... I feel like if they actually, like, talked to show that they had, like...
Because, again, not only that...
If they, like, had a conversation where they talked like normal sisters and hugged, and then she got frozen, I feel like that impact would have been there, but they didn't.
I feel like they could also argue, okay, so... But then also, Elsa, the whole reason, and I think this is what they were implying, the reason that she left to begin with when, she goes to the mountain, that was all because, she loved Anna so much so she didn't want to hurt her, right? So you could make that as, like, an argument. But again... You're just saying that. You're not actually showing it through what the characters are doing. Right? So it's... Yeah. And then...
I think that is what this movie suffers from the most. Like, despite it having the visual effects, it tells or sings a lot more than it shows.
Yeah.
I think that is
it is a skeleton of a story. It doesn't have. It's trying to do all of these like weird, quirky things, like with with Hans being the villain, with Elsa being like a queen, and this being like a sisterly movie or something. It has ideas. It's just that it has so many ideas, and they don't really work together, that there is no story that holds it together. It's a skeleton of like 3 different animals.
Yeah, and I think the best way to do this is kind of what I said before, is like have again that first of all, have some stuff have that beginning scene in the beginning of the movie. Have that be kind of like your inciting incident. So not the very beginning of the movie, right? Have a little bit of a build up to that. Have that be the inciting incident, and then having them actually like growing up together again, like I said, where they want to be with each other, they want to be siblings, they want to, do good stuff together, but there's this danger in trying to work through that and trying to figure that out. Maybe there could be a moment where Elsa maybe does something else bad and kind of does the whole, running away thing, but that could be like a small part of the story, right? Mm-hmm. And then coming back in, or just something together that like builds things that way. And yeah, I don't know, that's the best way I can think of doing this, because I don't know. And yeah, Hans just feels completely like he's there.
Shoehorned in for no reason.
Yeah, he feels shoehorned in.
Speaking of shoehorned in, the trolls,
they were useless.
I don't care about them. They just existed. Okay. Same with Olaf.
It's kind of like, I think they were supposed to... Okay. Let me use Aladdin, for example, because Aladdin actually had like a lot of side characters and stuff that played useful roles. So I think the trolls were supposed to be the genie. Like, Sven was, I guess, carpet.
Yeah.
And then...
Olaf is Iago.
I don't know.
Olaf, I don't know. Iago?
Olaf is like, I was gonna say a boo if I'm going with the
those,
movie.
I guess.
But,
yeah.
So, thing is though, is that they don't really have like in Aladdin you kind of see like how Aladdin meets you don't see how he meets Abu, but you kind of see like their relationship in the very beginning. And then when you see him meet like the carpet and genie, it also like plays a major role in the movie and everything. But here it's kind of like the trolls get mentioned and then they go away, and then there was that unnecessary song with them that literally could be taken out of the movie, and it doesn't really give any more context.
Yeah. And okay.
Even when I first watched it, I was not too impressed with that part of the movie, but with the trolls.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And okay, what other characters? Olaf is annoying. Mm-hmm. Like honestly, I'd heard that like he was annoying at like quote the worst part of the movie, but like honestly, he was more annoying than I thought he would be.
No.
Which is saying a lot somehow. I mean, again, do I hate him? No, but literally, what does he do? Like, literally nothing. So, because usually the comedic side character, like, they at least, like, do something. Yeah. Right? And here it's like, I guess, they made a snowman in the beginning, and, it's symbolic of their sisterly bond. But again, that was just... They barely did anything with that in the beginning, which is whatever. And then again, like Sven just exists. I guess he's fine, but he doesn't really do anything either. So okay. Kristoff is probably the best character, just because he's like kind of a normal person. But then he does the weird shit where he's like talking to himself, pretending to be Sven, and it's like, can you stop doing that? It's weird. So.
And then the whole troll scene.
Oh yeah, but so
he's a special guy for falling in love with Anna.
I know, and then there's the whole. Well, see, that's the thing. I guess you could say like, did he? Well, yeah, because that's the other weird thing. It's like they kind of like, they are together. Well, I guess at the very end it shows that, but again, the end thing is like, but their true love was not the real thing. So I don't know. That whole thing is kind of messy. I mean, I don't know. I made the really terrible observation that Kristoff looks like Logan Paul.
Thanks a lot, Alan.
So I kind of ruined that even more.
You ruined the best character in
I'm
the
sorry. And yeah, the only thing I can think of now is I want, like...
Oh, actually, there's another villain that I even completely forgot that was in this movie. And so we watched it again, which was the Duke of Weaselton.
Is he even a villain? He just kind of is there and just says things every now and then goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to be honest, there wasn't really a villain until, like, 2 minutes till the end with Han, so...
Yeah.
Apparently.
The only thing that, like, this kind of made me want to see is, like, if Elsa was, like... I'm trying to imagine Elsa in the role of, like, a really, like, bitter, not like evil, but, like, vindictive, like, Frozone kind of, like, supervillain.
Oh my god.
I'm like...
There was the idea at first to make her the villain.
Yeah!
Oh, wait, actually, yeah. But because of, like, the song Let It Go, they made her a protagonist, actually.
No, okay, so that's something that I don't understand either. So, that song, that whole point is basically she's like, fuck it, I don't care, I'm gonna do my own thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, right after doing that, she just continues to shut herself away. Like, what? Wasn't the whole point of the song is that I'm now different, I'm letting my, things go, I'm just gonna be who I am, so I'm gonna continue hiding away from everybody. But, what? Like, come on!
Put it that way.
Come on! Like, you can't even do the cheesy Disney song right. That's supposed to be the big character transformation. I'm a new person now, right? Thinking back to, like, Simba from Lion King, right? He like, actually transforms his personality in terms of stuff happening with that, right? But this just doesn't do anything with that. So what was the point besides we need a pretty song? Which was honestly probably the whole point. I just so frustrated that I feel like I on it because oftentimes I try to see if something is really popular, like why people like it, right? Mm-hmm. And some things, like, I see that even though it's quote unquote popular, it is kind of like nichely popular, and so then I can kind of like, okay, you people like this kind of thing, okay, fine. But this was so stupidly popular that it's not a niche, right? This was the vast general majority of people like this movie, right? And I just don't see it. Like, it's just, again, the problems we mentioned, it's really bare bones, and I'm just like, I'm thinking like back to Avatar, right? And people criticize Avatar for having, like, oh, the story is, like, really lame, and, like, the characters are so boring, and I've heard those criticisms. I came into watching Avatar again with that mindset, and I mean, okay, is the story great? Are the characters great? No, but they're fine. They work for what it's going for, and I'm like, so I at least I understand then, okay, I see why people would like this movie, why they would watch this repeatedly, and why it made a ton of money. I don't get this besides literally just, again, the marketability of the songs and the Disney princesses. And the fact that apparently, to me, it seems to me that was the only reason that this made $1.2 billion is saddening. Mm-hmm. It's like, are we that shallow, right? That just because we see pretty people singing, we give them over $1 billion. And I guess so. Again, am I missing something? Like, I feel like I honestly want someone who really likes this film to, like, explain why, because I just don't get it. Like, if you like this film because you say, okay, it looks nice and I like the songs, okay, fine, right? I can at least accept that. But if there's someone who, like, actually really likes the characters and really likes the story, like, explain it, because I'm trying not to sound like dismissive and what's the word when you're, like, looking down on somebody? Condescending. I'm trying not to sound like that, because I legitimately, like, don't understand, and I'm trying to, like, understand why someone would really like this, because I don't see it, and maybe I'm somehow just missing something, and there is some hidden thing that I don't get, but it just, I don't know. I don't know. I had the tiniest 1% chance of hope that I would actually maybe like this movie if I actually gave it a chance. And, well, that didn't happen, so I don't know what to say anymore. We've somehow been talking for like 45 minutes. Doesn't feel that long. I still don't know exactly where to rank this. I'm gonna have to stare at the list for a while and figure it out.
Maybe rank it tomorrow.
I don't know.
I admit that I still am fine with the movie. Would I want to see it again? Probably not. I mean, I never really, even if we weren't doing this challenge, I probably still wouldn't have watched the movie.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still like a solid mixed at the moment. Like, I was kind of ragging on it for a while, but I'm just like, I mean, it's still not Hunger Games to me. If I was to say there was like a baggage movie that I came into this with and I was pretty unfair about, it was Hunger Games. I don't feel Hunger Games about it. I feel like it had its bad points with like the popularity and stuff, but if I was to just be like, oh, do I hate the movie now? I don't hate it. I just don't like it as I did when I first watched it, when it was first coming out, when it was still just like another Disney movie, when it wasn't like all the rage, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
I guess for me, or Alan, you want to go?
well, I was gonna ask, like, you basically, what do you like about it? Because you mentioned the visuals before, right? And I can agree with that. Okay, but is there anything else that there? Again, I just want to know. I'm trying not to sound condescending here.
I guess mostly it is, like, from an artistic standpoint, it is probably the visuals, and I also can appreciate some of the minor details they added to it. Like, that's also kind of why I was like, they did this, but then they didn't really differentiate much between Anna and Elsa, but I kind of appreciated, like, minor details, like when her dress got frozen. Like,
Oh yeah.
that was an instance where they did show and not tell, which I appreciated. And then I also appreciated, like, the little design details and everything, like, on the doors and how they showcased, like, the Nordic things and stuff. And then I also appreciated, what's it? Oh, like, they did their research for this film and stuff, which I can appreciate for the fact, like, you know, Han's horse and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That's, like, an actual, like, the markings on his mane and everything, that's an actual thing that there's a horse that is like that and stuff, that is bred for that, and they cut it in those, like, patterns and stuff. So I found it, like, really interesting to learn that certain details that you think are actually just like, oh, Disney just wanted to make something special. It's like, no, these are actual things that exist, but they added it into it. So I can appreciate that they did their research and that it does look visually appealing.
Okay.
So that's kind of me, where I can at least appreciate the work that went into it. I just think that, again, the story and the characters probably could still have,
So
they could have
kind of like,
spiced it up a bit more.
so kind of like how we were talking with like Oblivion,
Yeah.
where it's like the
Yeah.
story and characters have problems, but like the overall product, especially with like the visuals and the design and certain things, is like still overall positive.
Yeah.
Okay,
a little
I
bit
can
more
understand
than
that.
Oblivion in the terms of, like, the research aspect, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, definitely.
Right.
Okay, I can
So
at least
that would
understand
kind of be how I'm looking at the film and stuff.
And again, people, even if we all acknowledge that, like, that a problem exists, we all, how much that problem actually affects our opinion of something, that's different for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, what was it? Another movie that you said, like, you really like the visuals and, like, the story and characters are not, like, amazing, but, like, they're, you know, they served what they were, was, for you, Forbidden Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
And I recognized this later, and because I remember we were talking about something, and we kind of, you know, teased some rankings of stuff, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically you had Forbidden Kingdom ranked really high, and
Yeah.
I was surprised at that, because again, I thought it was fine. I didn't like love it or whatever, but then also kind of, I kind of made me think about, like, is that like, because I remember during our conversation about Forbidden Kingdom, I felt like it was almost like how the conversation was steered. It was like, oh yeah, we thought it was just like, okay, but whatever, right? Even though we talked about stuff. And so, but then it's like, so one thing I kind of came from that, especially when I learned that about what you thought about it, I'm trying to not like, I don't want to feel like I'm like burying your specific opinions, so I'm just, that's kind of one thing I wanted to get in with that. Because again, that even though it depends on what you're looking for, because in terms of how the movies are affected by things, because like we could all pretty much find any movie and pick like some problem with it, right? And so it's just what problems bother you,
Right.
So, and to what degree,
And that's why we all have different rankings. And
Yeah,
we're not
well, so
doing just
again,
one massive list.
right? I know, but at the same time, I also kind of feel bad now that like if someone watched the Forbidden Kingdom review, they just like, oh, they all just thought it was okay, but it's like, oh, but no, that's not how you felt about it, right? So I kind of wish like that, and I feel like that's partly just because I tend to dominate these conversations, and I really try not to, but I think it's partly just like my personality. I don't know.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
So okay.
I feel like we all kind of come in bursts sometimes,
Yeah.
though, because
Yeah.
like I think I took over the Hunger Games conversation for a long period of time just because of
I don't
how
remember
much vitriol I have for it.
I don't even. Well,
So
I don't know, but. So, is there anything else to say about this? Guess
I
not.
don't know.
Well, we have one more movie of 2013, which is the sequel to something from last year. So, and I remember how I said for the last one, like I was curious to see it again to see how it works. This one, I'm kind of in the same boat, but I'm more apprehensive to see how it works.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's stop talking about Frozen.
Yeah, stop talking about Frozen and instead we'll, burn. Because of the thing in the movie that burns people. Anyway, whatever.
What?
What?
You know, the big thing that has the burning.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Wait, that thing.
Yeah.
Like
Think
fire.
about it first.
A much more compelling, but really dark movie.
I still haven't seen that movie.
We
We-
will
we just-
eventually watch it.
Yeah,
together.
it's again. It's been. I think it's on the bonus list. Anyway, whatever. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. God, this is long.
Au revoir.